Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
I thank my chairs, and I also thank Robin and Simi for having me, and I apologize for sending the abstract so late, and they have been so kind to still accommodate me and have me over here. Now, if my fellow speaker, young, vibrant, talking about films, had her Kristeva and her Abject and her Chatakari, then I have the 2013 John Brown's Celebrating the Abject, the Postmodern, and I have my Chutney Mary. Now, who is Chutney Mary? What is Chutney Mary? This paper prior to that is actually a working paper, part of a bigger project in which there are three more people with me. Professor Nilanjana Shaha from NSHM, Professor Himadri Roy Chaudhary, who is from IMI Kolkata, and perhaps we will be joined by the Minnesota University Crafts Chair Professor Professor Russell Belk. Now, we are all working actually on the concept of marketing, consumer culture, macro marketing to be precise, but then as takers would be few and none over here, I try to sort of change the entire aspect, and being a person who does a little with culture studies, tries to, I have changed the entire concept to the concept of identities and identity making, especially in the post-colonial contact zones and the transnational rehybridization of the same in the diasporic situations in which we find the Anglo-Indians across the globe, from Canada to Australia, from South Africa to England, everywhere. Now, while I was trying to locate various secondary materials, I was trying to locate various secondary materials for my project and doing an amount of ethnography. Over there, I came across a term called Chutney Mary. Now, I cannot claim to be an insider to this entire thing. Things are new to me. Things are quite, I wouldn't say flabbergasting, but quite illuminating to know certain things about a particular culture. But then, what was Chutney Mary? Now, the first thing that I Googled for, I found Chutney Mary is a 1990. Can I go to the slide? Yeah, this is the one. This Chutney Mary is a 1990 restaurant which is by owned by Ranjit Mathrani and Namita Punjabi. But then there are so many Chutney Mary restaurants, and we'll quickly look where are they located. If this is located in London, then can we have the next slide? Then we have the next Chutney Mary in the Singapore Airport Terminal 2. We have another Chutney Mary, which is in New Zealand. We have somewhere in Spain, right? We have in Kuala Lumpur. And then finally, we come to this, Rockingham. This gives an explanation to me as what is Chutney Mary. Now, if you notice, she is wearing a particular Indian dress, has nothing Anglo-Indian about her. She's extremely Indian, extremely South Indian, if I may put so. She looks like a Bharatanatyam dancer, more like that. But if you look at what she is wearing a boot over there, right? This is less of a stiletto, more of a boot. Now, this is where the hybridity comes into play. Now, but what is this? Is it a mere marketing gimmick conjured out of a kind of a hybrid Englishness? That was I thought, or is there something more important to it? Now, when I went back to the flyleaf of the menu of the Chutney Mary restaurant, the 1990 Mathrani's restaurant, over there, what they write about Chutney Mary is, this is a term, and to me it's a pejorative term, it was perhaps, of conservative Indians to describe an Indian woman who was more English in her dress, styles and manners. Now, indeed, this was a xenophobic colloquialism for the westernized black Anglo-Indian women. But in the postmodern context, surely we see that the same slang has become a site of celebration, of cultural plurality, whether it be the slippery identity of the Anglo-Indians or whether it be about their very culinary consumption culture. Now, since Mary Douglas's study, who herself takes the cue from Claude Lévi-Strauss, on the British working class meals entitled, and the name of the article was Deciphering a Meal, published in 1972, food has become an important study in cultural anthropology. Mary Douglas understood that food is a code, a set of networks of meanings that moved it beyond the matter of sustenance and nourishment. And a semiotic analysis of the same leads to the understanding of a class's cultural identity. A particular phrase, ich consumere also binesh, or consumer ergo sum, a postmodern retake of René Descartes' Enlightenment maxim, was the theme of an exhibition which was promoted by NEPIM, Network for the Promotion of Sustainable Consumption in European Regions, that toured Belgium in 2007. However, the interrogation at the end of the statement that was made to raise ironical doubts about the material consumption culture of modern human beings is finally resolved. We are what we consume, and perhaps to the gastronomic cultural critiques, we are what we eat. Now, in this paper that intends to be a kind of an ethnographic investigation, I'd like to highlight the culinary consumption culture and varied gastronomic practices of the Anglo-Indian community of India and settle in the rest of the world. My intention is to highlight the process of identity creation of the Anglo-Indians, now spread across the world, through their culinary consumption culture. I would further focus on how the culinary consumption site of the Anglo-Indians has thereby become a Bhabha-esque third space that performs and negotiates the cultural identity of the Anglo-Indian community that is at once local and at once global. Now, the culinary consumption practices that are indicators of socio-cultural identity of the Anglo-Indians are not mere acritical duplications of the colonial paradigm, but rather partial representations of the real European food. The Anglo-Indian food and its consumption at the contact zone is thereby a colonial mimicry. Furthermore, the same mimicry is doubly hybridized when these culinary practices reach beyond the border and through the diasporic Anglo-Indians. So, the transnational makes it doubly hybridized to me. Now, the research methodology, can we go to the next slide? So, this is a random selection. We have many, but over here I have just talked about the first cookbook that I have come across is 1877 Madras Cookery Book by an old lady dissident anonymous. We do not know who she is. And then we have Grace Johnson's book, Caricat Crew's book, and then many, and then we go to the more recent ones, perhaps the 1993, and Bridget White-Kumar is very famous, as I understand over here in this part, as she has been very famous as an Anglo-Indian cook, and she has been invited in various five-star hotels for the chefs to be taught. Now, to understand the transnationality part of it, I have employed Kozinets' concept, as I said, of ethnography in collecting data from the online sources, online blogs, YouTube videos, restaurant homepages, Facebook culinary communities formed by Anglo-Indian discussing thoughts, experience, practices, memoirs about Anglo-Indian cuisine. Now, an insider's approach, as was thought by Eviard and Lewis in 2001, was used by me in the ethnographic portion of my investigation because I became an active member and a follower of a closed Facebook community called the Anglo-Indian Kitchen. Can we go to the next slide? Right, this is the one. So, you have the Anglo-Indian Kitchen, and I am very thankful to Caro, who is Beatrix ma'am's daughter and who is one of the admins of this particular group, and she had given admittance to me, and we had a lot of discussion. And the Anglo-Indian Kitchen has more than 15,000 members from India, Canada, Australia, and UK. Not all of them are Anglo-Indian, by the way. And so it's a large imagined cyber community to me, as Nazari would say. And this helped me better comprehend the culinary consumption practices of the Anglo-Indian across the globe. Now, the statute objective of the group on this forum says, and I quote, "The focus of the group is preserving Anglo-Indian cuisine, culture and tradition through their sharing of recipe, including relevant posts that are of interest to our community, and through respectful dialogue. Our intention is also to share our history and the unique aspect of our community with the rest of the world." Hence, the research method employed by me to trace the consumption practice. This is the research method. So, I'll skip a portion. Now, coming to the paper proper. It is imperative to understand that everywhere, and especially within India, the identity that Anglo-Indians the identity and the consumption habit of the Anglo-Indians differ per geographical locale. It is no wonder that Anglo-Indians from various geographic locales of India developed a varied palate and wide-ranging culinary culture, since the indigenous cuisines of India also differ greatly within India. Johnson, can we go to the previous slide? Johnson, in her book, admits that she has no clue of pork as a part of Anglo-Indian cuisine, and she says, and I quote, Pork is a thing I have not seen used in any way. So, of course, give no recipe for it. However, Cut Crew in her book mentions recipes such as roast griskin of pork, spare rib of pork, roast sucking pig. Moreover, the mix and match with the Hindu and Muslim culinary culture accordingly affected the food styles of Anglo-Indian. Anjali Jararoy is not present perhaps, so she could have better thrown some light on it because she has worked a lot on the Kharagpur section of the Anglo-Indians. The recipe mentioned in these books mimicked the English European culinary styles, but they were, as Bhabha would have it, not quite white recipes. Some of the typical Europhile dishes mentioned in the cookbooks primarily relied on the meat-oriented items, and I quote, they are mock turtle, beef bone soup, rabbit soup, giblet soup, baked fish, haddock, oyster scallop, fried pigeons, and I hope you are not hungry. Now, these are all from Cut Crew. There are also from Bridget Kumar, so I'll quickly jump and skip because there are brain cutlets, pork sausage curry, etc. However, hybridizing the authentic European dish is not uncommon. The ingredients, now this is important, especially the fish variety, spices, cooking medium, naming the measurements and utensils, and certain cooking styles that go beyond the standard basic white colonial of baking, boiling, roasting, accounted for the hyphenated culinary culture of the Anglo-Indians. As suggested by Pia Pramina Dasgupta in a 2016 monologue, that the preparation of a simple dish like pork vindaloo varied from one state to another. While the recipe cooked in Calcutta used mustard oil, sweeteners, and was more spicy and mellow than the South Indian and Goan version, the recipe cooked in South Indian railway colonies used tomato puree and malt vinegar instead of fenny vinegar used in Goan cooking. This hints at the cultural appropriations made in terms of taste and ingredients varied from even among the Anglo-Indians settled in different parts of the country. Region-specific local ingredients and flavors were also incorporated, and Cut Crew talks about taj, ilaichi, ghee, dahi, ajner, hara masala, and chemi. There are certain varieties of Bengali fishes such as bhetki, rui, ar, Indian mullet, mango fish, mashir, hilsa, pabda, bacha, tangra, prawn, chingri, pomfret, etc. There is even a mention of how mimicking the chilled hard drinks and through an indigenous cooling style was possible. And Cut Crew says, and I quote, have a piece of mango wood 2 feet high, 8 inches square, cut round, hollow out the inside so as to hold the quart bottle and allow space for all round chemicals over there. Now, I'm again skipping a portion. I'm confused with the page numbers. Anyway, now the employment of the Anglo-Indians in the railways and the colonial hangover, somebody was saying that a lot of work needs to be done, and it is being done. A lot of work has already been done about the Anglo-Indians and the railway. The employment of the Anglo-Indians in the railway and the colonial hangover of the Anglo-Indians in attending clubs, also known as Railway Institute, had further resulted in certain important Anglo-Indian dishes such as Kobiraji cutlet of West Bengal. It's coverage. It's less of Kobiraji, it's more of coverage. Chicken Dag Bangla, country captain chicken, and railway mutton curry. Now, in the book Curry, A Tale of Cooks and Conquerors, Lizzie Collingham notes that these food items were primarily served at rail stations in the dining carriage or Dag bungalows, since access to ready provisions were limited and whatever spice were available were made use of. Further, the morning breakfast, by far one of the most important European meals, left an indelible mark on Anglo-Indian cuisine, and therefore we have the Chota Hazari and the Bada Hazari. But at the same time, there is also a lot of pickles that is being cooked by the Anglo-Indians, and gradually these pickles take up the more of pork pickle, which is not very Indian, but very, I would say, the tendency towards the meat and non-veg aspects of the Anglo-Indian is setting in. Now, in our attempt to understand this narrative of hybridity in the consumption habit and vis-a-vis the identity of the Anglo-Indians, or perhaps what one may call the emergent authenticity of the Anglo-Indians, we have chosen to analyze a particular dish. Just one dish I'll analyze over here is the ball curry. Kofta or minced meatballs form the origin of ball curry, also known as kofta curry. From across the region of Bengal to Kerala, this particular dish was famous with the Anglo-Indians and was usually eaten with yellow rice or pilau. Somebody just talked about it. But each region through its Anglo-Indian community went to hybridize it in their own way. The Anglo-Indian transformed the kofta, pounded meat in Urdu or Persian, to balls, giving a greater significance to the visual style than to the preparatory process. Perhaps it was this greater emphasis on the looks that enticed Anglo-Indians to play with the process and components of the dish. Not only beef, but even fowl, fish, rabbit, pigeon were used to make ball curries. But very uniquely, neither Grace Johnson nor Kurt Crew mentions about ball curry. So, when did ball curry turn in? I do not know. If you can go to the next slide. Yes. So, I have this, I had collected various diary entries from various families. This is the oldest I have of a colleague of mine, Debbie, who is there in Kolkata. She is married to a Muslim fellow now. And she says my grandmother's diary is there, or in them I can give that to you. But she had just scripted it down when she was quite old. This is something I can say. So, this is the 1952, but mind you, she knew about ball curry, let's say at least 30 years back. So, but when it did originate, these are research gaps, which are perhaps there always in a research and should be there for the next researchers to take it up from where I end. What is very strange is one of my informants at Asansol, Amanda, she talks about, she's 43, she talks about her school going son preferring Mary brand meatball curry. The Maggi brand meatball curry replaces the staple yellow pilau and yellow rice with Maggi, which is a global instant noodle brand. Now, I will not bring in the McDonaldization over here, but definitely to me, if you ask me, this can be seen as an example of how globalization can provide a fillip and not restrain and stifle the local cuisine. Time will tell if similar innovative hybridized Anglo-Indian cuisine gains legitimacy and authenticity in the future, possibly hinting at a broader Desi global Anglo-Indian identity. Now, coming to the last portion of my paper, the second segment of our analysis of the Anglo-Indian consumption culture, which is essentially ethnographic in nature, is focused on those portions of Anglo-Indian diaspora now settled in places like UK, Canada, New Zealand and USA. In our attempt to understand the Bhabaesque third space and dynamics of consumption site of Anglo-Indian food, we conducted an ethnographic analysis of Anglo-Indian Facebook culinary career. If you can go to the Facebook page. The Anglo-Indian kitchen. We began by gathering and collecting videos uploaded in the community. It consists of 76 videos uploaded till 10th of March 2018. Out of these 76, 14 have nothing to do with Anglo-Indian food and were excluded. 2 were songs dedicated to food and the rest were there which were important. Now, one of the videos depicted the launch party of an Anglo-Indian cookbook called Pickles to Poppadoms, recipe that outlived the Raj, 2017 Amazon book. So, we do not have a publisher by that in that way, by Christine Golding Carlton. So, yes, this is it. Christine Golding Carlton, thanks. Golding Carlton's book, launched as depicted in the video, involved an Anglo-Indian food spread consisting of the following items featured in the book: poppadoms, cutlets, tomato chutney, pepper water, meatball curry and vindaloo. But the party and the book also consist of dishes like teriyaki chicken, black cake. Presentation of the food was also distinctly Western. Although in her book she asserts that Anglo-Indians are mixed race community that adopted Western culture in almost all sphere of life, except as far as family and cooking goes, where its Indian roots are clearly evident. Yet her inclusion of teriyaki chicken, which is Japanese, Chinese duck stir fry, which is Chinese, and black cake, which is Trinidadian or Jamaican, went within the gamut of Anglo-Indian within the gamut of Anglo-Indian food that disrupts her claim that it is strictly about Anglo-Indian food only. Now, as a response, we have somebody called Jenny Herford. Again, we can go back to the slide. So, in this response to this, somebody talks about this particular vindaloo with duck and uses a global brand available in Australia called Lava Duck. Now, this is about Lava Duck. Let me tell you what is Lava Duck. She uses the commercial version of Peking flavored duck breast, the Lava Duck brand from Australia. The tag on the Lava Duck brand reads, generously coated in delicious aromatic glaze inspired by the Chinese dish. It is therefore now a Portuguese Indian dish cooked with Australian grown duck that have been aromatically infused with Chinese flavor. We have gone global, right? So, coming to the end, right? I had another video, I couldn't show that, just to tell you that if this hybridity and transnationality is about identity making, the last thing is also there, which when I initiated a discussion called about a particular unique food called kutti pie. I don't know how many of you had kutti pie. Moral ethics, global ethics says do not have kutti pie. Tradition says have kutti pie. So, there is again another sort of contact zone, I would say, that evolves from the global ethics on one hand, pro-animal global ethics on one hand, and traditionalism on another. So, if you want to check out, there is a video on that also, but I do not have time. So, thank you so much.